Hello, and welcome to the first unofficial episode of the Scott Adams Night School. This is a test pilot I'll be sharing with some of the key members of the Scott Adams School. My cat's leaving me here, in the hopes that I can contribute and be useful to the mission that they are continuing on in honor of Scott's legacy. So let's give this a whirl and see if it works out. All right, and how every episode of Scott Adams starts, we will do the same here, no different. We're going to take a simultaneous sip, and all you need is a cup, or a mug, or a glass, a tankard, chalice, or stein, a canteen, jug, or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. For the night school, we do decaf. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's called the simultaneous sip. It happens now. It's good stuff. Even without the caffeine, you still like it. All right, so we're going to read some news coming from Owen Gregorian, a little bit more on the science and psychology realm. First thing that caught my eye is a new study published in Personality and Individual Differences has found that persistent victim mentality is strongly linked to narcissistic personality traits. Did they have to do that study? Is there somebody we potentially could have asked? I think we could have asked Scott. And the reason we could have asked Scott is because if you have a victim mentality that is persistent, you're constantly putting yourself at the center of everything. And of course, that's going to lead to narcissism. If everything happening around your world has you at the center, you're not grown up. You're narcissistic. You need to be thinking of others as you move along in life. So, another wasted study. Could have just asked Scott. Shame he's no longer with us, but the lessons carry on. It's an easy one to have figured out. All right, next in the news, a giant snowstorm has struck New York City and many other areas around the country. Really a good first test for Zohran Mamdani and how he's able to run and coordinate around New York. Now, whether he was effective in getting away the snow, getting people up and moving, it seems he was. It doesn't seem like there was any major issues, but where he's really able to make an impact is in the communication. And a lot of what he does mimics what Trump would do, but in his own spin type of way. There's a video of him out with a bunch of other workers shoveling. It's a PR piece, of course, but it reminds you of Trump at the McDonald's, being on the ground, working with regular people, and using that visual persuasion in order to get people on your side. So to see Zohran do that, to see what Trump did at the McDonald's, you just see the parallels. You see the parallels in their communication style. And maybe that's why they got along. They just have a similar way to approach issues, a similar way to lead in their respective domains. So you have to respect that even if you don't like the policies. He's still a great visual persuader. And all of his videos are they're good highlights. They're very visually appealing. They have good, fast cuts. So good to see from Zohran. We'll see how the policies work out. And then he also made it a remote school day on Monday. I think that was officially what happened. Kids weren't having a traditional school day. You might think liberals, communists, socialists rather, oh, they're lazy, they just don't want to work. Zohran, leading, pacing and leading, setting the pace, saying, I'm on your side, but hey, we've got work to do. Another great move by Zohran. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of him as far as the communication style, the persuasion style. I don't agree with the policies, but when it comes to politics, I'm big on following the energy. Zohran has a lot of energy, and then we expect the people in a democracy to move that energy in the right direction. And so I'm still optimistic. I'm right outside of New York City, and I think he's got a chance to do great things if he can tweak what he's thinking on the policy side. But that happens over time, right? If we took Trump's policies by word when he first started, things would be a lot different now, though some of them have come back in his second term a little more strongly. But most politicians don't stick to their policies. They have energy, they follow what the people want, they respond to the market, and their market is their constituents, the people who vote for them and the people who fund them, frankly. So we'll see how it works out, but great energy coming from him. He was pressed in a recent interview. I don't remember where this was from, where he had done that quote on the warmth of collectivism. And the interviewer had said, well, are you talking about Mao? Are you talking about Stalin? Are you talking about all these communists who killed millions of people? Of course, he's not, though he is a socialist, right? He has some respect for those types of ideas that did lead to the deaths of millions of people. But of course, he's not praising that part of it. He likes a different part of it. And he's playing two sides. He was saying, well, when I'm saying the warmth of collectivism, I mean it's going to take a collective effort. Clearly, he's somewhat referencing socialism. He's somewhat referencing this ideology. But if we use Scott's two movies on one screen idea, even among his base, part of the base is going to say, oh, this is the dog whistle. This is the socialist dog whistle I'm looking for. This guy's on my side. The other part of the base that's maybe a little more center is going to say, no, he's just using that language. That's good language to use. He's not talking about these more extreme ideas. And since we all consume media in such a decentralized way, he's going to have no problem getting away with that. He's going to be able to do that as long as he wants to. So good to see that he's recognized the game, and then just hopefully it works out in general for the city of New York. Right, another story coming from Owen Gregorian. I think this one is in reference to a Gallup poll. How Americans are using AI at work. And something like 12% of employed adults now say they use AI in their daily job, according to a Gallup workforce study. And then one quarter say they use AI at least frequently, which is defined as a few times a week. And comparatively, about a quarter said they used it at least occasionally in 2023. I think we're going to see this trend continue. AI, it's a horizontal product, but really it has more vertical use cases that people are able to actualize to get some efficiencies in their work. The dream of the big AI companies, the dream of the investors is it just sort of takes over everything. I have trouble imagining that it's going to do that in a really substantial way, even as new product releases come out from companies like OpenAI. You see a buzz, but usually it's one or two things that are happening that people are using over and over again. And there's just these niches and these buckets that the AI companies have really been able to capitalize on to get user buy-in on. But any user who's really trying to use it across their entire workflow, every single task they have to do during the day, there's too many bugs. There are too many bugs to deal with. So I think we're going to continue to see that slow adoption. Now, some people are going to say, well, eventually this is going to hit a critical mass and it's going to be able to be used constantly all over the place in every facet of your work. I have trouble believing that that's really going to happen. Work is just so unique to individuals and roles that something that's trying to be all encompassing is just going to miss some gaps. It's going to need some human input in order to set it straight in different ways. It reminds me of the Ben Affleck recent interview where he's talking about the problems with AI in Hollywood, how he doesn't expect it to take over. The AI actress like Tilly Norwood, right, who isn't in any big famous movies that I'm aware of. And what I would see is people repost videos of AI like, well, I think it is going to take over movies. Look at this video where everything looks really epic and there's The Rock and there's John Cena and there's Will Smith. But the reason those videos are appealing is because those are people we know. We're humans. We're just attracted to what other humans are doing and the different human elements. So if we don't see a familiar face, if we don't have some type of personal connection, among me and my friends, we'll use AI for entertainment purposes, but it has to really relate to us personally to get bandwidth, to get traction within the group. Otherwise, we kind of just let it slide by. There's nothing that's just productized without something of that personal element that is showing up and everybody's enjoying. And I haven't really seen it in general. You can remember all the Studio Ghibli edits from ChatGPT, all the different things people are doing. And I think the big trendy one now is ask ChatGPT how you treat it, but it's how you treat it, right? It still has that personal element. And then we're not just seeing an AI movie with faces we're not familiar with stories we're not familiar with. It's always connecting back to something. So that's going to be a trend that continues on moving forward. Kanye West. This is pretty controversial every time you talk about Kanye West. And I think there's no prediction about Kanye West that ever comes true. He's always moving in a different direction than you might expect, and he's apologized. So you have to give him credit for that. It's not like a guy like him to really apologize and genuinely mean it, but he has apologized to the Jewish people. It seems sincere, at least with what was written. He might also have an album coming out, so maybe there's another element to that. But if I had to put a prediction out there based on the way current internet trends are moving, you see a lot of people on X going really far to the right. You see the popularity of people like Nick Fuentes and that whole crew who's moving more right. I expect Kanye to pivot, to go the other direction. I do think we have a woke Kanye coming back. A lot of people surprised, but if you have to expect the unexpected from Kanye, that's the next move. That's clearly the next move for him. All right, another study from Post. New psychology research finds romantic cues reduce self-control and increase risky behavior. Could we have asked somebody? Could we have asked somebody for this? Of course we could have. We could have asked Scott. This is the mating instinct. When you can't explain behavior, look at the mating instinct because it explains all behavior. Why is somebody taking a risk? Why is somebody doing this thing they normally don't do? It's the mating instinct. The way you dress, the way you look, the way you talk, it all boils down to the mating instinct. So, no surprise there. No surprise there. All right, the Minneapolis protests. Gonna have to take another sip before getting into this one. This is probably the biggest story lately, and a lot going on here. The biggest phenomenon, we can see the two movies on one screen filter being applied. Every post I look at on X, whether it's from the left or the right, they think, oh, look at this video. It confirms that he was completely in the right. There's no reason he should have been shot. Those officers should have known that he had been disarmed at that point. He wasn't doing anything. You see that on the left side, every video that comes out. On the right side, you see, oh, look, he's got the gun. Sure, it's getting pulled out, but it discharged. He's fighting the cops. Look, he shouldn't have been there. It's a tragedy, but he deserved it, right? That's what that side's saying each time. And it was the same with Renee Good. It was the same with George Floyd. It's the same in almost all of these situations, and it's going to continue to be that way. Each side is just going to confirm their bias. Most situations in life have this type of ambiguity, and so you're going to have to keep applying that filter now. What is right? Who is actually correct? I don't know. I don't know. You have to let it go to court. You have to let things settle out in that way. There's just too much hype online, too much bias, too much playing for your own team that you're never really going to figure it out in the court of public opinion. You're probably not really going to figure it out in a court of law. But I would expect that the federal government will continue to pursue this path of aggressive deportations. If you really think about it, the guy, what's his name? I can't remember his name now. Pretty, something like that. Yeah, Pretty. Right, he's bringing a gun to a protest. He's getting violent with the officers. It's in his right to do some of that, right? He shouldn't be getting violent with the officers, but it's in his right to have a gun. It's in his right to go protest. But it just increases risk. It increases the risk that something bad could happen. And unfortunately, something bad did happen. On the other side, ICE officers, I'm only seeing things online, but it does appear that they are not as well trained as traditional police, that they are pretty aggressive. I've read they have had some monetary incentives to nab people to make those arrests. And so they are out, they play a little more fast and loose than you might see from other federal officials. So you have a bit of a perfect storm going on here. But just now, not so long ago, Trump has announced that he will be pulling a lot of them out of Minnesota. And I think that's the right move, right? I've seen a lot of discourse. I even think I saw Jack Posobiec write this, that, well, this is what the people voted for. They voted for mass deportations. That's true, right? A lot of people who voted for Trump did vote for that. But you can't just do everything that was voted for. Once you're the president, you're not just the president to half the country, you're the president to the whole country. And I think pulling out those ICE officials, it is de-escalating. That's really what's important right now. If we would have talked about this before any of this happened, and I would have said to you, is it worth it in order to get these deportations that some American citizens who don't like it get killed in the process? I don't think you would have said, yes, that's worth it. And when you take that higher level view, I think Trump is really correct to pull these people out right now to de-escalate the situation. If he wants to continue on that plan of the deportations, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think just that situation's a little hot. He knows how to cool it down, and he's pursuing that path. Now, it also seems Preddy was part of a signal group that organized, followed ICE agents. And I think that's part of the more important story here, just the way people are too online. People are a little bit too connected, watching the news, thinking they're in some other situation than their reality, and getting in these dangerous situations, thinking they have some safety, maybe because they're an American citizen, right? And this is ICE, and ICE should only be deporting non-American citizens, so it's fine, whatever I'm going to do. Cracking down on those groups, getting in there, right? I think Tyler Robinson was part of a similar group, the man who shot Charlie Kirk. There's something brewing in there that sort of needs to be calmed down, relaxed, and people developing some sort of psychosis, thinking they can do all this vigilante justice. It seems like more of a left wing phenomenon right now. On the right wing, it seems to happen a little more in media, but it's something that probably our intelligence agencies need to address a little bit better. Another report came out. The Guardian has reported that ChatGPT is citing Grokopedia in some of its answers. This to me is really cool. I don't think Grok is one of the best AIs out there. My AI cases are pretty limited. I'm not a coder. I'm not very technical, anything along those lines. But the coolest thing about Grok is you're scrolling through X, you're reading the news, and you just press a little button on top, the little Grok button, and it gives you all this other context. Now, it's not always right. You do have to be careful. It's still AI. You don't know where it's getting that information, what it's feeding you. I find it's not always like perfectly up to date, right? And we're reading brand new news stories, but it's just a great feature for somebody who's interested in the news. Reading a story, you don't have all the details, and you just press a little button, you get more info. And so it's cool to see that it's expanding. It's really a network effect. You can look up what Naval Ravikant says about network effects, and it's why Grok might sort of take over as an informational AI. You could think of Google's Gemini, right? They have access to all of Google, all that training data, though other AIs are scraping what's happening on Google. Grok and Gemini seem to be the two biggest research AIs that are going to keep growing because of these other elements that are connected to them. And the last story I want to talk about yesterday was Scott Adams' memorial service. I loved what Owen Gregorian posted about this. It was the most useful funeral in history. So many different lessons that Scott Adams had shared showed up in the speakers, what they said during the memorial service. And I think it's just an honor to a great man who taught a lot of people a lot of things. I'm trying to be useful. Hopefully this can work out. I can do something along this realm to honor his legacy, right? Try to demystify the news a little bit and make it a little more calmer and rational, or not rational, but less emotional. Let's say if we learn anything from Scott, it's that people are only rational about 10% of the time. But to get all the wisdoms and lessons from the people that were surrounded by Scott, it was cool to see. It was an emotional funeral, and you learn some new things, and that's just amazing. Even in his funeral, he's teaching you something. And did he achieve it? Was it the most attended funeral ever? I think so. You have celebrities' funerals like a Princess Diana's and a Charlie Kirk's, but none of them were as big and as intimate at the same time. So I think he achieved his mission there. All right, that's the test episode. Let me know what you guys think.